big part of my real estate career, I was dealing with commercial real estate. And once I was contacted by the very good gentleman. He was a sculpture artist, and he wanted me to help him to find his future art shop and gallery. I still remember that day, our initial meeting in my brokerage. In our negotiation room, we were sitting across the street, we were sipping coffee, and I still remember the smile and his passion when he described his vision for his future gallery. And I was smiling too at that meeting, and I was thinking that it's going to be everything is pretty straightforward, and it's going to be easy deal, easy ride. I already have a feeling of the check in my hands. However, life always corrects our expectations. When I start working on this deal, it becomes that it's not going to be easy. I couldn't find anything even close that match of my client's expectation. And I was searching commercial listings on MLS. I was talking to every commercial agent in that area because sometimes they have pocket listings. They know about some properties that it's not on MLS, but it's gonna be, or they could be, or you could get a deal. Nothing happened. I couldn't find the property for my client. I didn't give up. I expand my search. I started thinking out of box. I was searching whole MLS system, different listings. I was driving street by street in a neighborhood in a search for the perfect house for my client. And I found one. It was listed as a residential, but I knew that that street has mixed zoning, commercial slash residential, rather residential slash commercial with the restricted commercial use for the properties, but art gallery and art shop should be permitted. I double checked with the city, and after it was confirmed, I introduced this property to my client. He loved it from the first sight, and he put the offer on this property. And even though it was kind of pretty straightforward negotiation, it took almost months to get this deal firm. Eventually, my client get his home, he opened up his art shop and gallery, and he creates a lot of art pieces on that property. I got my check, good check. But the more important for me that I help my client achieve his dream of his life. And also I gain very great professional experience. And part of this experience is how to deal with power of sale properties, because that property was on sale by the bank. Watch this video to the end, and I'll share this experience with you. Hi, welcome to Living, Selling, Buying, and Renting in Toronto YouTube channel with the Real Estate Accent. My name is Alex Lakritz. I'm realtor with Sutton Group Admiral Realty, and I'm working in this beautiful city. Well, enough about me. Let's get back to the business. I'm back to my office, and let's talk about power of sale properties as an opportunity for the buyers. And as I said in my previous video, I will make separate video about this type of the properties. The reason why I want to make it separate video, because this topic, this issue becomes very popular. It's a lot of information on social platforms, on YouTube, and basically every real estate blogger, every mortgage blogger, or basically everyone covering news in Canada these days talking about rise of power of sale, rise of power foreclosures, distressed sales. You could see this terms everywhere around you. But again, because it's a lot of information, and sometimes it's very contradicting information, a lot of buzz, a lot of emotions. I decided to make a separate video just to share my experience, how to deal with this property and what it is, power of sale property. And also I want to share my experience, because a lot of a lot of my colleagues were licensed when market was great, and during their work it becomes more greater. And now, when it's downshifting, when it's correcting, when all this process with decreasing price and decreasing value happened, we see more and more power sale listings. And it's true that the rise, like 100%, 200%, 400%. It's true, but just think that, let's say 4 years ago, you could have one or two power sale listings. Now you could have 400, comparatively to the total listings uh, in Toronto Real Estate Board, which is 30, around 30 something thousand. It just peanut. But still, yeah, you had 1% 5 years ago, one or two listings per year. 5 years ago, now you have 400 listings. Yes, it's increased, but it's still not so substantial. However, this rise of the properties that banks seized and sell it, it's indication that the market is going down. Market is not stable. Some people couldn't keep up with their payments, and it's not just because of the conditions of the only real estate market. It's indication of the not great economical condition of the whole economical condition in the country, and because a lot of outside factors create extra pressure on the real estate market. However, when the things gonna change, and they will change, because that's the history of Toronto real estate market economy. It goes up and down. So now when we're going definitely down, probably will not reach the bottom, but eventually it's gonna start changing, and the power sale properties, their amount gonna be decreasing. So it's normal that we're gonna see them, and it's true that if you buy on a search for the property, you could see them more these days comparatively to others. Of course, it depends on the area and type of the property. However, a lot of my colleagues saying that it's perfect opportunity. You could send lowball offer, you could get better price. And well, sometimes probably you could get a better price compared to other in the neighborhood. However, this type of the properties, because of its nature, has some hidden traps built inside. And it's very important to understand those hidden traps and do not get trapped in those, and be safe. I will share my experience with power sale properties, and I will explain you those traps in my opinion. But first, let me clear some misunderstanding in terms, because you could hear different terms and people using them sometimes in a wrong way. Let's talk about three terms. First, it's distress sales. Second, it's power of sale. And third, it's foreclosures. Uh, let's start from the distress sales. Distress sales, it's the sale that happened by the owner. It's the sale when the owner of the property, and we're talking about real estate, when the owner of the property, because of the some conditions, need to sell this property quick. Usually it could be some financial losses or some business losses or some health issues or family situation, divorce, or God forbid, family loss. So he need to sell it quick to get some amount of money to solve other problem, to get out of stress. But again, I want to understress that it's this sales done by the seller. Another term it's power of sale and foreclosures. Pretty much, it's both terms describe the same process. The process when the lender who gives the money to the owner of the property not receiving the payments for this property. So basically, the owner becomes in a mortgage default situation, mortgage in a default, and the lender sees the property and put it for sale to recover his loan and the all expenses that was involved during this default times. And power of sale and foreclosure, it's two names of the same process but done in different way. Power of sale, which is more popular and more suitable for residential market in Southern Ontario and GTA. It's more fast approach, most fast process when the basically it says if the mortgage in default in 30 days, the lender has the right to seize the property and put it for sale to recover his losses, financial losses. Foreclosure, in opposite, it's more lengthy process. It's with certain determined steps, and all those steps usually uh, controlled by the court, decision by the judge. And most likely, you could see foreclosures in Ontario and GTA in commercial real estate as a part, and mostly it's happening as a part of bankruptcy process. Uh, Foreclosure is a part built in that bankruptcy process. For the residential markets, 99.9% is going to be power of sale. Yes, I know it's a lot of stories that foreclosure, you have to buy foreclosure, but it's mostly suitable for our uh, southern neighbor, for the United States, because they prefer more foreclosure process, as I've been told again. But again, because we're living in Ontario, we're living in Greater Ontario, most likely on a residential real estate market, you're gonna see the power of sale property. So, how power of sale is working? Uh, Very simple. There is an owner who bought a property. He put some money down, but he needs some extra more money to close the deal. So he has the bank, credit union, in other words, financial institution, or even private lender, small mortgage company, or even loan shark, which is okay. We're not going to discuss is it good or right. So we call it lender. So he get this money from the lender under certain conditions. He promised to make his payments, monthly payments, and by the certain time he has to finish with those payments. And he promised not to miss the payments. By the law in Ontario, if the mortgage payment missed in 30 days, basically in 1 month, the lender has the right to seize the property and sell it as a power of sale. Start the process of power sale. Please note that mortgage payments cover the previous months always. So basically, if you make a payment on the first day of each month, let's say you make a payment for them on the 1st of February, you paid for the January. The same next payment is going to be 1st of March. You paid by that payment for the February. So basically, if you miss the payment, you're already 30 days in default automatically. But it doesn't mean that the bank gonna right away seize your property and put it for sale. No, usually they start contact uh, the owners, they try to talk to them, they try to ask them to make a payment, they try to negotiate some kind of deal how they could catch up with the payment, with the goal to return them in a normal schedule payments and keep everyone happy. So the owners could catch up with the payments, bank gonna receive their money, and the owners still continue live there and enjoy the property. However, if owner's not cooperating, if especially if they try to avoid this conversation, if they're hiding from the bank or from the lender, from financial institution, the lender gonna involve the lawyer. His as his representative, we're gonna send the letter, pretty much was the same, that they miss the payments, some amount, and they have to catch up with the payments. Otherwise, we're gonna seize the property and sell it by the lender. And this letter is the final warning. And if the owners miss it, still not cooperating, lawyer goes to court and get the court decision that by the some date house should be vacated and the bank gonna seize the ownership and put it for sale. Of course, if the people still living there in the house, it's gonna be bailiff office involved. Sheriff's gonna come and kick people out of the house if they still continue to live there. Uh, Again, it doesn't mean that the power of sale that you see right now on the market, just months ago somebody lived there. No, it's pretty lengthy process, 3, 6, up to some cases I heard up to 9 months, or even a year. Because it's every time it depends on the situation. However, eventually, if nobody cooperates with each other, this property gonna be seized by the lender and it's going to be listed on Toronto MLS. It's going to be what was going to be for sale, available for sale. Of course, if it's smaller company, smaller private lender, the process is going to be much faster because they more flexible and they more goal oriented. But anyway, in the mainstream, if it's sold by the bank, it's going to take time just to see this power sale listing. Another misconception, because a lot of people thinking that there are some kind of bank of power of sales, some kind of hidden amount of those properties sitting in a local branch, and the local manager just, I have good property, I could sell you for 20% of its value. You're gonna have a deal. No, it's not true. Because by the law in Ontario, this property has to be sold by the market value or very close to this. And it was some court precedents when the banks sell it for the low price and then the owners sue the bank and get compensation. Because why it happened? Because when the bank put the property for sale, he sold it and he got his amount of his loan, his expenses, and whatever is left, he should give back to the owners, because the owners give the down payment, they do some payments for the mortgage as well. So they own some part of this home. Even if the bank sells, it has to share some amount of the proceeds of the selling. So that's why if the bank sell it much lower, it's the open possibility for the lawsuit, and because of the precedents that already happened in Ontario, the owners could sue the bank and they could win substantial compensations from the bank. So that's why those properties gonna end up on a MLS system, everything clear, and in bigger financial institutions there is a special departments, central departments usually and operating from the head office that dealing with the whole power of sales in the whole GTA, for example, or Ontario. So it's not like you could get very, very good deal. No, this property usually marketed for the same close value to the comparable sales in that area, or even sometimes a little bit higher. However, on this market, when it's hard to sell your property, yeah, probably it's going to be a little bit lower. But again, it's not going to be like 50% of the value, 40, 30%. No, it's going to be in a reasonable ground. And even more, we're gonna talk about this a little bit later when I'm gonna tell you my experience with it. However, so the property ended up for selling, it's sold. How you could find that this property is part of sale? Pretty simple. This is original. This is the same listing on Toronto MLS, and we see the same other properties. And there is no special sign, there is no special banner, there is no special stamp that says power sale, power sale. But there's three ways that your agent could see it and determine that this is power sale listing. First, like most likely it's a good practice. There is a special in a brokerage view of the listing on Toronto MLS. There is a part that says brokerage remarks for brokerages. And there is it's a good practice to put this listing is part of sale property. So this is the first sign. Second sign is the seller name. Because it's sold by the financial institution, it's going to be name of the probably. It's going to be name of the lender. So it's going to be name of the major banks or something like with the financial or the mortgage company, something that connected to the mortgage industry. Or sometimes it could have just standard Ontario corporation number. However, sometimes some people buying property for their corporation, so it's not necessarily means that if there's a numbered corporation stated as a seller, it's power sale. However, if you check the schedules, if it's a lot of schedules, usually few schedules attached to the listing, it's 1, 2, 3. It's standard schedules, nothing special. But if it's 5, 6, 7, and it's all in legal view with the name of the lawyer companies from the banks or financial institution, and it's a lot of clauses, a lot of different legal letters. It's definitely indication this is part of sale property. So if your agent spot these three parts of the listing, he could say this is part of sale. And of course, he could contact the listing agent and double check and get 100% sure that it's part of sale. But again, there is no special stamp, there is no special banner, and it's not going to be a neon sign on a property that's part of sale. So, but it's still possible to find it and to do the search for the specifically part of this sales. But again, you find this property, you take a look, and you have to be prepared for the three traps. So now we come to the meat, we come to the three hidden traps of the three groups of the traps when you're dealing with the power sale property. The first trap. I would say it's I call it negotiation trap or seller motivation trap, and it's pretty simple. This properties for sale by the bank, and the bank already spent some time, they lost some money, they need to recover it, and it's good motivation to recover the money. However, they, as I said, it's special department, it's different clerks, and it's big chain, big group of people working on this, and everyone passes to another one with the higher and more higher hierarchy with the to the decision maker, and when it comes to the final decision maker, you don't know what's is his motivation, you don't know what the inside policies of the bank, you don't know what's in mind at all for this property, so you never know what's the real motive for their decisions when you bring the offer to them. In my experience, as I said, when I found that house for my sculpture client, I talked to the listing agent. We discussed the price. Basically, we verbally negotiate the price. We put the offer, and it took us almost months. And my God, how many it was? Probably it was 6 offers for the same price, for the same conditions. Well, conditions pretty much straightforward because it's a power sale. We're gonna talk about this as a second term, but it takes almost months. It was February. It was exactly February. It was February. Usually, it's one of the deadliest months, and especially if it's cold, snow, winter like this year, it's going to be very, very slow months. That's what happened. Uh, this property was on the market from October, and I introduced my client. I found this property and I introduced my client end of the January. We put the offer, and by the end, almost all February, we were sending back and forth the same offer. I didn't change any words from the first one. Why it happened? Because the bank needs to create the trail of the offers to support why the lower price for the at that time it was something about 15 or 20,000 down. But it took whole months to create paper trail to support why they lower for 10, 15,000. That's what about this motivation. So you have to be prepared that you could deal. Yes, you could lowball them. Not necessarily you could get this deal. Again, it depends. If it's smaller lender, private lender, yes, you could get it because they need to do things quickly and they're more flexible, they're more dynamic. The bigger institution, the slower going to be process. So this is trap number one: motivation and the time of negotiation. And you have to be prepared for the long, unexplainable negotiation. It just happened because of those policies. You have to understand those people in the bank, they need to follow their policies and they're inside the rules. The second trap. Second trap, it's probably the biggest problem. It's condition of the property. And to make it very short, all power of sale properties sold as is. Again, all power sale properties you will buy as is. Whatever is inside, whatever is conditioned inside, that's what you're gonna get. There is no warranties, there is no guarantees by the seller, by the bank, that something gonna work, something gonna be good. Buyer, be aware, you're buying as is. And please take into consideration that probably something bad happened to the people that it comes to the power of sale situation. You have to understand the only thing that those people are frustrated, especially if they know they're gonna be kicked out of the house. So you could imagine what's gonna be the conditions inside the house. And it's true. It could be horrible, everything, the walls could be damaged. I need full repainting, the floors trash to the garbage, appliances they removed and sell it or they trash it. Some I heard that from my colleagues that even furnace and all the ducts were removed and sold by the people when they know that they're going to be out of the house. So again, you could do inspections, you could check, but very often those houses standing on the market without electricity, water, and heat source, gas, because the bank cut all the supply just not to create more expenses. So even if you go inside the house, you couldn't check is it working or not. So this is the second trap. It's condition of the house, and it's very very sometimes it's very very devastating what you could get, even if you get the lower price. But again, I want to state that the bank doesn't care what's inside because it's already stated in those schedules that the property sold as is, and it's solemnly responsibility of the buyer to get any warranty and remedy for this problem. So this is trap number 2, it's condition of the houses. And the trap number 3, I call it unpleasant surprises. The first one, you negotiate everything, you get full inspections, it seems good property, nothing was damaged really bad, you need small cosmetic facelift, and it's going to be great property. You already start enjoying it in your mind. And almost few days before closing, you get the note that the previous owner decided to start his monthly payments, and your sale agreement null and void, and basically this property goes back to the previous owner, and you end up, of course, you're gonna get your deposit back. However, you lost some time, you lost feeling, and you have to come back to the market to find another property. Is it happened? Yes, it happened. Probably not very often, but this possibility exists. Very bad surprises that some kind of financial companies get kind of personal loan for the previous owner, but they registered as the lien on the property. Some outstanding fees for the electricity, gas, water, unpaid property taxes. Of course, everything possible to check, but sometimes something could be missed, and it's gonna be your responsibility as the owner, because yeah, you new owner, but the property is still the same. So whoever owns the property gonna get gonna be paying for those problems. And sometimes when they knew that it's a power sale of property, those kind of uh, surprise those people, and they know that this bank, they're not dealing with the bank because it's very hard to sue the bank, it's very hard to negotiate them. They simply wait until this property gonna be bought, and they're gonna surprise the new owner. Again, not necessarily it's gonna happen to every power sale property, but you have to be prepared for this. This is the risks that you have to calculate and you have to assume if when you buying power sale property. And in other surprises, because as I said in when I discussed previous trap, uh, most likely electricity supply, water supply, and uh, what's most important, especially in the winter, heat supply going to be cut off. So it's not going to be heating, it's not going to be electricity in the building. So even if you inspect the property and seems everything nice, especially because of the heat in the winter, most likely you could end up, especially if it's condo apartment, it's okay. It's not not big problem there. But if it's a house, if it's older house, especially if it's already had some a little bit mold, without heat, without and with the without proper air circulation inside, it's going to be mold inside the walls. So it's going to be mold underneath the on the frames, between inside the walls, underneath the flooring, on the subflooring, whatever. So again, not necessarily it's going to happen. It's going to be, but this possibility exists because of the condition of this property. That was nature of this parcel property. So, uh, what I could say, again, you could get great deal, and most likely on these markets, the bank's gonna be softer. They probably gonna accept some kind of lowball offers comparatively. Let's say in a neighborhood house, average house was sold for 1.1 million, and the same type you could get, let's say, for 900. Yes, it's 100,000 less, good, but again, the risks that attach to those properties, you have to calculate them, and you have to be ready to assume them and get ready to pay for them. And again, I always say it's always up to my clients to get decision. My job is to give you information. However, in my personal opinion, for the first time buyers, just from my experience, because first time buyers definitely want to move in ready properties. Power of sale not the best choice. However, if it's power of sale condo, it's much easier. But again, it's not because it's power of sale condo, it's because it's a condo. Again, it's total up to you. If you still have a questions, contact me. We're gonna talk because every situation, it's your situation and it's unique situation for you. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed and you have a lot of good information about living, buying, selling, and renting properties in Greater Toronto area. If you still have questions or you want to discuss your next move on Toronto real estate market in the next 1 to 100 days, just give me a call, send me a text, or email me, or simply leave a comment under this video. And I will contact you and we will talk about your situation and how you could get all your real estate goals in fast, secure, and most lucrative for you way. Thank you and see you next time.